amazing work, and it could be the last time for him to be a world champion again.
I'll do you one better. Kevin Owens should be the one to beat Cody. Full stop. Yeah, totally should be.
Okay, all right.
Not to say Cody doesn't win it back right away or soon thereafter. Like, the match is going to main event, Saturday night's main event. If Kevin Owens win, carry the belt till the Rumble. What, about a month and a half? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Cody beats him for it then. And then whatever Cody's going to do at WrestleMania can be set up after the Rumble. But yeah, I think Kevin Owens should totally beat Cody. I understand the idea of having long title reigns. Mm-hmm. But you can be champion for the most part for a good stretch of time. It doesn't mean you have to hold it continuously through that whole stretch of time. Drop it for a month. Give us some doubt. There's so many of these feuds that Cody have had since he's won the belt at WrestleMania last year. It's like, well, I know he ain't losing.
Yeah.
So how invested am I going to be in these matches and feuds if I know the outcome already?
Yeah. So here's the thing I've noticed. Every single person who has challenged Cody Rhodes for this title, save for Logan Paul. Nobody said this about Logan Paul.
Yeah.
But everybody else, there's always one of these hot takes out there. This should be the guy. This should be the person. This should be the time. He needs to drop the title. No way. No how. This guy sneak attacked him next to his bus in front of a bunch of nerd Mark fans and their dumb cell phones, humiliating the face of the company, mind you. All for what? Because he didn't like that he teamed up with Roman Reigns? Get over it. That should not be validated. Kevin Owens should not be the one to dethrone Cody Rhodes. It's not big enough. What, Saturday night's main event? Is this even canon? But no, are they going to treat this as like a
broadcast on network television? Of course it's canon. I'll do you one better. Kevin Owens should lose it back to Cody. It should be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the undisputed title of WrestleMania.
Wait, you're trying to give away money here? You're trying to sink the company, trying to send WWE into bankruptcy, Larson, with your terrible booking ideas?
It's great booking ideas. Cody doesn't need that title anymore.
Well, listen, dude. I love Kevin Owens, and I'll say this. I think the same could be said for Randy Orton when he eventually feuds with Cody. I think, what are some of Cody's others? He had Logan, that was nothing. But did you do a feud with AJ? They had a match.
They had two matches.
They had two matches. I think that the level of character, the attention to detail where it comes to character is such that so many of these top names that are going to have feuds with Cody, I would put above The Rock. Now, they might want The Rock to be the guy for box office purposes, and from a business standpoint, that might not be a terrible idea. And I'll be honest with you, I look back at the WrestleMania build last year, and I think there's a lot that The Rock has to offer in terms of entertainment value. At this point, and I'm just speaking from the perspective of what I think WWE would do, I'd be surprised even if The Rock beat Cody. I really would. That being said, Kevin Owens winning, I think there's a ton of great story ideas for this. I think Randy Orton winning, there's a ton of great story ideas for that. John Cena, if he ends up as a contender to Cody Rhodes, I think there's a ton of great ideas there. I'm trying to think about it. I mean, let's say that gets us to the draft, and let's say in the draft you bring Drew McIntyre over, or a name similar to that, a CM Punk over, a name similar to that. I think that these characters these days are so strong in WWE that I don't think it's a hot take to suggest any of them beat Cody, because I think there are some really good story ideas that you can play with. I think here's the thing also, though. The deeper we get into Cody's reign, I wonder if it will feel less like a foregone conclusion that Cody's just going to lull Cody wins.
It depends on the story being told and who his opponent is. If a year from now he's still champion and he's in another feud with, I'll bring him up because he's returned recently. If they circle back around to another Nakamura feud, well, yeah, Cody's winning that.
I'd be kind of surprised.
I would too. I'm just bringing up the name. Yeah. If it's pretty obvious that they're putting Cody in a feud with someone who's there to lengthen his title reign, then I think it's going to be the same thing, because that's what it's been this whole time. It's like, we know AJ is not going to beat Cody. We know Logan Paul's not going to beat Cody.
Okay. Logan Paul, we don't even have to talk about that one. AJ Styles. That was the first feud out. AJ these days, and obviously there's the injury was a big deal, but AJ doesn't. When they wrote AJ, it didn't feel like a thing. Randy will feel like a thing. Kevin Owens feels like
that's what I'm saying. It's dependent on who he's facing. If it's someone they're bringing up from the mid card to face Cody,
and that's why I'm bringing up bigger names, though. That's why I'm saying once you get to the draft, Punk, Drew, some of the bigger names, if they keep along that path, then I think it'll become more and more like, oh, could this be the one? Are they going to do it now? Be there when Mania season comes up, if they do the Rock and Cody, especially if they do a 2-night deal where it's Rock. But like if a year from now, if they do Punk Cody at a year from now it'd be Survivor Series. But like, I don't know, Mania fucking 42.
Yeah.
Because you got to figure hell, even let's say SummerSlam of 2025.
Yeah.
If they somehow, some way get to Punk Cody then, and Punk is on fire the way he is right now, and he's proven that his body's fine. And if they start to show hints of turning Cody, maybe they'll keep on going with the Cody thing. But maybe we'll all be thinking, oh, this is going to be it. And then we'll be surprised when it doesn't happen, like we were surprised at WrestleMania 39. Like we were kind of surprised when Drew McIntyre beat Roman Reigns. In retrospect, that's silly. But at the time, it was like, oh, this might be the time. At Clash at the Castle. Once Drew won, I think we both were like, oh, Roman's going to have this, and it's going to be a WrestleMania thing, and it's going to be a wow.
Yeah.
But I do think that the deeper we get into it, and you're absolutely right, if they bring up a mid-card dude, then no, it's not going to be the case. But there's so many highly elevated performers right now in terms of how they're being written. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm just throwing this name out there, if they keep Damian Priest somehow, some way elevated at a high level, and maybe if they turn Damian Priest heel, and he comes over to SmackDown, I'd probably still, I'd have to see that one to believe it. But like a Gunther, if they revisit Cody Gunther,
yeah,
maybe it's a super Triple H guy. I just think it's still too early.
What, for Cody to lose?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Come off a super long world title run. Let's
WrestleMania
pass that belt around a little bit.
WrestleMania's right around the corner, man.
Yeah, Cody can lose the title for a month and a half to Kevin Owens and get it right back.
Oh, like at the Rumble?
Yeah.
I don't see. Here's the thing. I don't care. Like I'm down with that. I love Kevin Owens.
But you also love Cody more.
I do love Cody. Yeah. If the story's good, but like, do you think this story necessitates it, or do you think this story would really super benefit from it?
I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm not huge on Cody, so of course I want him to lose.
Sure.
So.
But that's not the question. The question is like, try to be objective in terms of the storyline. Do you think it makes sense?
I mean, it could. Because the kind of gist, or say the punctuating moment at the end of their back and forth on SmackDown is Kevin Owens' inability to find that killer instinct in their previous title match.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And Cody's question, can you do it? Because I'll be able to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Kevin Owens decides, yes, I'm going to have that killer instinct, I'm going to take you out, and can do that before Cody has an opportunity, then yeah, I think it totally makes sense to do it. If Kevin Owens power bombs on the apron like 10 times,
I think there's also kind of like an undercurrent when you think about it of Cody gifted this to Kevin Owens. Cody's like, oh, he's, number one, Cody's got supreme confidence because he took down the tribal chief. So maybe he was taking it easy on Kevin Owens during that match. And he's not going to do that now. The one reason why I think it, and again, trying to be objective, but arguing the other side of that, because I feel you on that, is for Kevin Owens to be as nasty a villain as I think they want him to be for his character moving forward, I don't think he should be validated here. If he wins that title, it's validation.
Mm-hmm.
If he loses, he sinks deeper and deeper into anger and frustration and paranoia, which creates a more interesting character. Although I would love to see him with that title. But I do think that my point is sound. I think that, like...
I also think, too, if you have him win and he thinks he is validated, then you can get a self-righteous Kevin Owens who then, hey, I was right this whole time. Cody Rhodes is a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that could also play out in interesting ways, too.
Yeah, I'm not saying it can't. I'm just trying to look at the story for what it is right now. I mean, look, any story can be written really well, and then it's like, oh, wow, that's
Kevin
great.
had that. KO had that Kevin is right shirt.
It'd be like, see, Kevin told you so. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen to Kevin.
Listen to Kevin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I noticed that these next couple hot takes, Larson, are straight out related. They're straight out of the Larson vault, really. Anti-Mox takes, Larson. Let's hear it.
Well, we got one here from Omar. These are related, but we can answer them separately, even though there might be some overlap. Omar Diaz here says with hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Dean Ambrose better than Jon Moxley. Don't get me wrong. I love that Mox is more free to do what he likes, and perhaps it's my rose-tinted glasses, but I've gone back to watching Dean Ambrose and still this day prefer him.
All right.
Mox is one-dimensional in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's got a good sense of humor. And I'm not saying you need to book him as a comedy character.
Right.
Because they kind of went too far in that respect in WWE at times.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like Jon Moxley as a character would be more interesting if there was more dimension to him other than I'm a mean dude and I'm trying to teach lessons to people. Like, give me some dimension. Have him be a little funny. Because sometimes when someone's kind of sinister and funny, you're like, oh, I don't know how to feel about that.
Right.
And he just feels like such a one-dimensional character, lacking in complexity and layers at this point, and that's been a lot of his AEW run.
It's been difficult for him to seize your attention, is what you're saying.
Yes, it has been. He didn't have much luck seizing the Superstation, nor my attention.
I'd love to debate this with you, but I can't. Listen, the Shield broke up in June of 2014. He was with the company until April of 2019. Just before April 30th.
Yeah.
So we saw basically 5 years of solo Dean Ambrose.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen now over 5 years of solo Mox.
Yep.
Whose story took more twists and turns?
Oh, solo Dean Ambrose.
Yeah. What you're saying is exactly right. We saw several facets of the Dean Ambrose character in those 5 years. And granted, some of it might have been too goofy thanks to Vince McMahon, thinking that he knew Dean Ambrose more than Dean Ambrose did. Jon Moxley, Jonathan Good. Mox has been the same guy. People criticize MJF for being one note for the last 5 years. The same could be said about Mox. Now he's just meaner Mox.
Yeah.
Like agenda-driven Mox.
Yeah. At least MJF had that almost year-long story of basically turning face. The story with Adam Cole.
He had
at least
that.
And, I think there was even a way they could have pivoted from that to heel MJF in a more satisfying manner.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of flipped the switch. All right, you're heel again. There should have been a process of that happening. But at least we got that with MJF. I don't mean like we've gotten slight, and I mean slight, iterations of the Jon Moxley character. But it's all been pretty much, I'm a badass dude who likes to fight, and I'm mean, and I'm like hecka violent, and unless it's a hardcore match, he just wrestles like everybody else.
I don't know where the variation. You're even trying to give him more benefit of the doubt.
Oh,
slight variation. There's been no variation.
At least there's slight variations in terms of his positioning on the card, whether you're supposed to cheer him or boo him, and that's the only
Sure.
slight
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
variation.
Absolutely. At least I will say this about MJF. The guy has shown that his character has emotional vulnerabilities when he's talked about facing anti-Semitic bullying at school and stuff like that. The Punk feud was really great for him. And then he just sort of now reverts to now he's movie guy, and there's really nothing to it. But at least along the way, we have had depth with the MJF character. We've never had that with Mox. He's always been the same thing.
Yeah.
And so Dean Ambrose, for all the faults of Vince McMahon, was a more developed, complex character. So I agree with this hot take, Larson.
There we go. This is Matt Noverse.
Okay.
So a similar question here says Jon Moxley is boring, especially now. It's thought in both W and AEW he was a solid mid-carder at best. Like, it's cool that he's hardcore and everything, but it's not anything I can't find from 15 other active wrestlers. Mox is super dependable. You know what you're getting with Mox, and I understand for that reason why. Mox is super dependable, and he built up enough of a brand at WWE to be seen as a main event dude. And combine those two things where at times there's kind of so much up in the air at AEW, I understand why Tony Khan would lean on Mox.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know what you're going to get. You're going to get capable matches. You're going to get, at times, capable, even sometimes good promos. And if you're looking for just a steady hand to kind of guide AEW, sure. There's just not a lot of excitement there with Mox.
Well, to say somebody is boring is, obviously it's sort of subjective. He's incredibly over. He's done a fantastic job, not just like you said, building the brand in WWE, but protecting the brand while he's in AEW.
Yeah.
He does not lose a lot.
No.
And he is kind of booked like, ironically, they're Brock Lesnar. He is a scary force for people to reckon with, and he does not lose a lot.
No.
And so I don't know, for the AEW crowd, they still really like Mox. He's, as you said, he's not just a dependable, reliable guy. He's a dependable headliner. He's a dependable big name for them. And it does, as we've seen with Chris Jericho, it's not the easiest thing in the world to protect your name brand.
Mm-hmm.
And they, him with Tony Khan have really done a great job protecting the Jon Moxley character. And so as Ambrose, I take issue with him being a mid-carder. As Ambrose, I thought he was a legit world champion. I think people really liked him. I thought that they dropped the ball by not having him versus Roman at 32 instead of having Roman versus Triple H.
Mm-hmm.
They really should have done that. If Mox would have won, if Mox would have been like Triple H's plan B after the Rollins plan B or whatever, I think that could have been fun. Or just Mox's, the X factor that's throwing a wrench into Triple H's plan to stick it to Roman. I thought that they could have done much more interesting stuff with that.
Yeah.
But no, I always saw Dean as a proper main event guy.
Yeah.
He's got he's got the charisma. He's got the fan support. He did build a good brand for himself. He's got that, I know they wanted him to be kind of the Stone Cold guy. And obviously Stone Cold is one of one.
Yeah.
But in terms of presenting that anti-authority guy, there was nobody better than Dean Ambrose at the time.
Yeah, probably not. I will say this before we move on. These are but two of several hot takes regarding Mox being dull. So it seems to be, at least amongst our audience, upswell of that sentiment.
And look, here's the thing, though, and I could defend the guy as much as possible, but I've said as such and you've said as such, and oftentimes it has to do with the creative, but the creative really matters. The creative is the character.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised at that because that's our audience. And, oftentimes the audience is reflective of us, or we're reflective of the audience, whichever way you want to cut it. So that's not surprising. It's kind of like when we do hot takes, people like Undertaker's overrated. It's like there does seem to be like a swell of fans who hold a certain hot take, and right now Mox is at the top of the AEW stories and stuff like that. So that's not terribly surprising. Before we continue on with our other hot takes, though, let's go ahead and talk about the sponsor of today's episode, Larson.
Let's do it. This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by Cheating Myself.
Nice reading of a script.
Like, gosh, this is tough. In some respects, I do agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, at least in AEW, that's not even exactly the case. Because Darby and Mox have faced off a couple times prior to this current iteration of Mox. But obviously, Orange was in an extended feud with Mox for that international title. I'll say this. Even before the events at the end of All Out, where Danielson lost the match to Mox, had to retire, and then got, suffocated with the plastic bag.
Yeah.
I always felt like Orange Cassidy was actually a more interesting character than Darby Allin.
Sure.
I like Darby, but I don't feel like there's as many layers per se to his character as opposed to Orange Cassidy. Now we don't exactly get to see the layers and complexity to Orange Cassidy's character are far more subtle than others, because it will generally take place during the course of a match where he'll go back and forth between the light kicks to the shin and then bring the intensity. And there's been instances where he's brought the intensity outside the ring. There was that match that Statlander had against somebody where he comes to ringside, starts really cheering her on, something they didn't often do.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like Darby, the character, has kind of more or less been the same since day one. Where I feel like Orange Cassidy, there's been an evolution. It hasn't been stark, hasn't been like, a huge evolution. But I think as he's gone on AEW, we've seen more layers to his character. Whereas Darby, I don't know. So I don't necessarily disagree with this. If they had swapped Darby for Orange and had Orange be the one to beat Mox, I'm not saying I'd be super excited about it, but I'd be like, okay, that in my mind, especially as how they're approaching their respective creative now, to a degree that makes more sense to me.
How they're approaching the creative now. See, I'll be honest with you. I kind of think that I'll go this far. I think they're at the very least interchangeable. Darby, because I feel on Darby, and Orange Cassidy over time has peeled away a couple layers. And Darby came to the company as a fairly fully formed character. Or I'll be honest, I don't know if he really needed all that much development over time. Like we saw his relationship with Sting, and I think that's informed him a little bit. It might not be so obvious, but here's my main problem with it. It doesn't matter because neither of these guys should be the one to take down Mox. That's my opinion on this. I've mentioned this like countless times on the AEW reviews. Hangman, Swerve, Ospreay. That's your future main eventers. That's guys who've already main evented. Those are guys that are going to be around ideally for a while, and they're going to be the ones that you really want to try to prop up as your ratings draw guys, And it's one of them that really should topple Roman Reigns of AEW, which at this point is Moxley. Darby's great for the crowd that have been there, that are AEW diehards, because, forever he's been the guy who will do anything for the crowd. And I do appreciate, I'll say this, I think that it could have been interesting for Orange Cassidy, for the cool exterior, whatever you want to call it, the detached exterior of Orange Cassidy, to slowly whittle away as he sees challenger after challenger step up to Mox, and he makes the realization that he's going to be the guy to do it. because he sees people after people get, murdered by Mox, basically, including Darby Allin, everybody's precious Darby Allin. I also kind of like, though, like we saw at the end of this, that Darby is this relentless force. He loses to Claudio clean on Wednesday, which probably shouldn't have happened. But then he shows up at the end of this pay-per-view, and he basically scares them all off by crashing his car into their truck. And that chaos, that unrelenting chaos, to me is probably the way I would have written it as opposed to Orange Cassidy. If I was told, you have one of two ways to go here, because it is flashier and it is more outwardly dangerous than a stewing Orange Cassidy. So I think with the way they're constructing the story, Darby being the guy who is this unrelenting, you could beat him, you could beat him, you could beat him, you could beat him, but you'll never really beat him. And he's going to keep on coming at you until he's done with his mission. That seems more like Darby to me, and I think that seems more what the story needs right now.
I feel like we're missing the name that really should be beating Jon Moxley.
Colt Cabana.
And that's Christian Cage.
John Moxley, where's your father?
Like, if I had to do...
You didn't say Jeff Jarrett, I'm disappointed in you.
Well, I'd say Christian Cage because he has a contract. Like, if I was power ranking people that I'd want to beat Mox, I wouldn't have Orange or Darby personally in my top 5. I'd have the names you mentioned.
Same, yeah.
Along with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
I'd have Swerve. I'd have
title unification, deathmatch, the
exactly.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre title.
Yeah, I'd have Swerve. I'd have Ospreay. I'd have Hangman. Maybe Jay White in the top 5. I don't know. Think about it some more. Those are the names, yeah. And I get that they're using the story to try to elevate more talent up into the main event. I just don't feel like the story is necessarily strong enough to do that. And so far, for two people that were in Mox's orbit early on, Private Party and Daniel Garcia, it's happened very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if this story, not to say that it needs to take a year for them to get to that point, but at least Private Party faced some measure of adversity when they lost their first title opportunity just to beat the Young Bucks afterwards. Garcia, like his first match against Jack Perry, beat him.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like there needs to be more ups and downs in terms of everybody's story as it relates to Mox's mission. And it just feels like they're not taking their time with this. Not that it needs to take a year, but there just feels like there just needs to be some twists and turns, some more ups and downs for everybody involved before they get to whatever their end goals are.
I'll be honest with you, I like the Private Party one because the dude took his hammer to his hand. And it's like, God damn, that really hurt. And yeah, what are we doing here? Let's get our asses in gear. And what happens, as soon as they get their asses in gear, boom, they're there.
Yeah.
Garcia's a little stranger just because, the contract stuff. He was gone for a second, then he comes back, and, he's not dancing anymore. So, I don't know. That's a little weirder to me.
It just feels like they're leaving some story on the table. I mean, I specifically
with Garcia, I 1,000% agree.
Like Private Party, I get it. At least they lost the first match. They had overcome that to get the win. So that one makes more sense.
And sometimes one good swift kick in the pants can get the job done.
Can do it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the case with basically everybody in the story, all it took was a lecture from Mox and everybody.
Well, I said sometimes better. Though. I said sometimes.
No. I know. I'm saying if that starts to be the case, obviously it wasn't for Orange Cassidy. But
you're saying if they go down that route?
Yeah, where everybody had their first crack at beating whoever they need to beat to reach the level that Mox wants to
after
be
a motivational
then they all
speech.
win.
Yeah.
And all right, just took one lecture from Mox and everybody just elevated the game. I just feel like there needs to be some more twists and turns to make the story more interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to try to do with Darby Allin. But again, you can't dismiss. We're giving AEW the benefit of the doubt. There's some sort of plan here.
Yeah,
and you can't always do that. So we'll see where it goes. Next hot take from Chris Cassidy. Chris says Randy Orton should be the one instead of John Cena to beat the 16-time champion, surpassing Flair. Randy Orton.
Randall Keith Orton.
I like somebody in my Wrestle Juice, I think, comments once said, Orton and Cena should tie. They should
then face each other to break the record.
No, they should both get 17 in case one guy gets canceled. You've got the other. I'm joking. No, but they did. The suggestion was they should tie because two amazing names that came up around the same time that had very different characters. I don't know. I like one guy being the guy. I don't know, dude. Honestly, okay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
What are the angles we can think of that this matters? Because there's obviously the business perspective, and in the business perspective, it's got to be Cena because he's part of the DC universe, and he's a movie star now. He's probably only going to get a bigger name because he's probably only going to be in bigger movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Cena, he's the Make-A-Wish guy. Like that's a good name to have your top guy.
You know, also if I know he's pretty much already said end of 2025 career's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we just saw this story more or less in AEW, a situation where, say, at Mania he beats Gunther for the title. He's 17-time world champion now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a situation where AEW put forth a good idea, but probably just because of circumstances they couldn't carry it through further, where Cena says, when I lose this, I'm done.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You know, is the Mickie James story from Impact, you know, her last rodeo. You know, and that there's intrigue there because then every match feels like it could be the last.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know, and that's interesting. And again, I'm sure with Danielson, he just needed to leave because his neck was so messed up.
Yeah, right.
You know, and even if that's not part of Cena's story at the end, him even just vying for that 17th world title run unto itself in this last year of his career, in-ring career, that's something you can market around and make a lot of money.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, where I think Orton needs 2 more title reigns to tie.
Yeah.
Cena?
Yeah.
So if nothing else, I think this timing's going to preclude any sort of collision between Cena and Orton in terms of them both being 16-time world champs and then battling to see who would beat Ric Flair's record.
Sure. Is there any business reason for Randy Orton to be the guy?
I guess maybe if he's going to retire and then he's got 16 as well, and they want to do a similar thing that's proposed with John Cena, then sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I don't know if there's anything intrinsic in terms of how WWE's doing business that would be enhanced by having Randy Orton at this moment, long term. Because like with Cena, that's the entire year's worth of story right there. Either he's champion, if I lose, I'm done, or continually throughout the year just trying to give himself opportunities to get that one last title reign.
Yeah. I mean, Randy Orton, I guess, I would imagine in the span of time that he's been in WWE, boy, I don't know, dude. Cena was, yeah, I mean, I know Orton, I was going to say this. Between 2002 and 2024, Orton's been there more. Because around 2016 is when Cena started doing like super part-time shit.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, does that even matter? You know, like, I don't know, Cena's sort of the guy. I can't think of a single reason why Orton would be a better pick than Cena. I really can't.
No, I can't either. Woodrow's World has a hot take. Says the fumbling of the Wyatt Six has driven me from the product. It's just Bray all over again. They had a year to map this out, and all we got was a meaningless feud with American Made, which Gable learned nothing, and a one-sided Twitter feud with Cross, where he gets a 4-minute rant while the Wyatts get a 5-word tweet. Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. You got to do the finger wagging. Unacceptable. There you go. You have a good finger wag. Oh man. So I will say this. I won't call it a fumbling, but there is a thing where you could starve the audience too much, where it's like, where was the cool stuff? Like, remember Adam Pearce, like our collective jaws dropping when Bo Dallas was in Adam Pearce's office? It was like, oh, fuck. That was unexpected. I'm not going to call it a fumbling. Because, like, how can you fumble if you don't carry the ball? You know what I mean? Like, you got to put them out there a little bit more, man.
It's less a fumble, but a lot of incomplete passes.
Yeah. Like,
That's
they
what
haven't
it
even
feels
tried. They haven't really tried.
No, it just feels like they don't want to risk overexposing the mystique of the Wyatt Six, so they just don't have them on TV very often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
I know.
That bit, especially where Bo Dallas is sitting in Adam Pearce's office there seemed like a lot of interesting stuff. They still haven't really, in terms of Bo Dallas interacting with the WWE locker room, explored the dichotomy of Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's potentially a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, I know.
The fact that Chad Gable was the exact same person after the feud that he was before the feud, that's what blows my mind.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed like the whole point of that feud, the whole point of Uncle Howdy going after American Made was to prove something to Chad Gable.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, nothing was different.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I just want to see them more. You know, like, I get that. I really do, and I feel you. But, like, yeah, they want the guy to be a bad guy. He's going to be a bad guy. And you did have that opportunity. I mean, it seems like Cross has more of an effect on people than Uncle Howdy does, than the Wyatt Six does. But yeah, I mean, there is a thing about overexposure, but you need exposure at the very least. You can't be overexposed if you're not exposed.
No.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, Bo is so talented, and we get just drips, little tiny drips of Bo. Yep. And it's like we can use more. Like Bray would go out there for like 10 minutes and say a whole lot of nothing. Bo barely gets any time to say anything.
I know.
And yeah, that is a shame. Like, you have this, use it more, man.
Agreed. There's got to be a better balance of approaching their creative while maintaining the mystique and not overexposing them, while continually telling stories and having them involved on the show.
Yeah, right.
It's like they haven't found that balance yet. They just think, if we have them on doing something substantial more than 2 weeks in a row, it's overexposure, and people are going to lose interest, or they're going to lose their mystique. I don't think that's the case. Mystique is built and lost in the stories you tell with them.
Yeah, right, yeah. But you got to
tell uninteresting stories, and they leave no impact after the story is completed. That's where the mystique is lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next up, Timothy Whalen, the hot take, says Mercedes Moné is the most overrated of the 4 horsewomen. It's either her or Becky.
Interesting.
I think Mercedes.
I'm making trouble saying this. I say it's either her or Charlotte.
Oh, this is where I because I thought about Charlotte for a second. Charlotte? No. Here's the thing about Charlotte. Charlotte's super underrated. Think about it from the fan perspective. How many people actually give Charlotte her flowers? Charlotte's a fucking.
Kill their wives and go to death row, get to eat whatever they want.
People on death row get to eat whatever they want?
For their last meal, yes.
Oh, I could never kill anybody.